And in our attempts to make things palatable for the entities that fund healthcare, we tend to negate the social context within healthcare, the social context that supports and surrounds and in every way influences dynamically healthcare. Economics of mutuality is at the foundation of having a practice, a private practice in a community.
Welcome to UpMed, a journal of healthcare's race to the bottom, hosted by Dr. Rowe Urquhart. Join Dr. Erica and her guests as they pull back the curtain and share a behind-the-scenes look at the healthcare industry, all while providing solutions for better patient care and management. Now, here's your host, Dr. Erica.
Hello, and welcome to UpMed, the journal of healthcare's race to the bottom. I'm your host, Dr. Rowe Urquhart. Welcome to another chapter of our saga on the journal of healthcare's race to a place that none of us wants to see, the very bottom. The subject of today's conversation is the economics of mutuality. I was first exposed to this concept at the University of Oxford when I did a sabbatical and studied Christianity, actually, apologetics. And during that experience, I was exposed to an initiative that was born out of the Mars Company. Yes, you heard me correctly, Mars, meaning pet food and the treats and candies that we've grown up loving and enjoying. Mars Company. Mars Company, many years ago, started an initiative where they began looking at the mutuality between business and the environments in which they exist. So, for example, if Mars is in a suburb of the UK and there are institutions in that neighboring environment, be they supermarkets, hardware stores, power plants, how does Mars affect the ecosystem in which it physically exists or resides? Now, I'm sure you're wondering, what in the world does this have to do with healthcare? Well, as I am a physician, or I have a practice with my husband in private practice, and we exist in a community, just like Mars does. And what's more important about the way that a physician's practice exists within a community is that our sole purpose is mutuality. Our very existence is mutuality. Our origin is mutuality. As physicians and healthcare providers, we exist to serve and to help the people in our surrounding communities. And so we are the institutions that neighboring members of our community might come to for donations, for civic causes, or for support for a neighborhood action, or for the service and the care of our children, our mothers, our daughters, our spouses, family members, people that are dear to us. And I was reading a book, quite interesting book, by Annabelle Soemimo. She is based in the UK. The title of the book is Divided: Racism, Medicine, and Why We Need to Decolonize Healthcare. So, very controversial title to begin with. But one of the things she says in her prologue is that science is influenced by social contexts. Hallelujah. Amen. Yes, it is. And in our attempts to make things palatable for the entities that fund healthcare, we tend to negate the social context within healthcare, the social context that supports and surrounds and in every way influences dynamically healthcare. Economics of mutuality is at the foundation of having a practice, a private practice in a community. Why do I say that? Because we exist to know and serve our community's patient populations. And we're accountable because we physically exist there. One can drive to our office, knock on the door. We are a permanent fixture. I remember the doctor that cared for me as a pediatrician. He took care of me from the age of 3 until the age of 18. I knew him very well. And he knew me. He knew the aunts and the surrogate mothers who supported me in the neighborhood. He bought an ad in the journal for my debutante ball. He was a support in addition to being my pediatrician. And that's something very special that we have here in the United States, the opportunity for patients to come to know their doctors that care for them over a longitudinal span of time and to develop personal relationships. What does that do? Well, that helps patients to feel comfortable that they're seen. What is everyone talking about post this 2024 election? They're talking about the fact that people do not feel seen. Well, what do you think is going to happen when there's no longer a community practice for you to go to and you are an underrepresented or under-resourced individual? Do you think that a large healthcare system conglomerate where you're seeing a different doctor every time, every interaction is a new exposure, do you think your healthcare is going to get better? Do you think that there is significant mutuality when private equity is the one backing your healthcare, not the neighborhood doctor who sponsors the baseball team, the Pee Wee League? Let's get real here. Science exists. The science of healthcare exists in a social context. My husband and I, we decided to start our practice in an under-resourced community in northern New Jersey. It rests between Jersey City and Staten Island. And there's one way in and one way out of Bayonne, New Jersey. And over the last 25 years, we have established a reputation, a name, and we have received patients from other orthopedic surgeons' practices who have said, I didn't appreciate the care that I received with that doctor because I did not feel heard. I did not feel seen. Or the charges that were associated with my care seemed too exorbitant and it just wasn't feasible. We're entering an age where, because of this third actor, you could say it's the government, Medicare, Medicaid. You could say that it's the commercial private insurer, United Healthcare, Cigna, Aetna, Blue Cross Blue Shield. Because of these third actors, the costs that are passed on to the patients are deteriorating the relationship of this economics of mutuality. And patients are looking for the best possible deal. They're wondering, are you providing this care because you want to charge for a surgery, but I really don't need surgery? They're casting a shadow over the earnest efforts of well-meaning doctors who are dedicated to under-resourced communities. There's a gravitas to that idea and that concept. And even if the patient-doctor relationship remains unscathed, untarnished, the mere concept that this third party would engage in what I would consider a marauding sort of approach to healthcare, where they require that individuals who are highly trained, highly skilled, perform a service, and then they don't pay for it on the back end. That's piracy, right? You're taking something and you're not paying for it. They engage in this behavior. And in that context, we are expected to survive. Ain't gonna happen. It's not going to happen. I remember sitting in the lecture halls of Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine in Baltimore and thinking about what kind of doctor I wanted to be. And I had so many dreams, so many hopes, so many expectations. And I love Baltimore. I really do. And specifically, I love East Baltimore. I would come into the hospital. Usually, I'd park on the outpatient center side of this huge, sprawling medical campus and walk outside if the weather permitted. And I would walk up the hill to the main hospital. And inevitably, I would see a patient that I had cared for. They could have been a part of the neighborhood, a member of the staff of Hopkins. And they would say, "Hey, doc, how are you? Good to see you. Thank you." So, from the moment of my training, I had that feeling, that satisfaction of caring for my community as a member of Baltimore's community, a member of the Hopkins community. And I remember being in the emergency room, and everyone knew I was pre-surgery, whatever that meant. So I was placed in the part of the emergency room, and at that time, there was HIV, AIDS, there was a significant IV drug epidemic. And so I basically gowned up, wore this huge mask. I was covered from head to toe, literally. No part of me was exposed. And I would essentially sit there for 12 hours, INDing pus, IND meaning incision and drainage. I would sit there, see patient after patient, open up the abscesses from the IV drug use, have the universal precautions for the fear of hepatitis C or AIDS, but I was basically cleaning pus. That was my role as the pre-surgery medical student in the emergency room at Hopkins. And I felt that each patient that came in with the abscesses, each patient was valuable. Each patient was a human being that deserved respect, that deserved the best possible care that I could give as a student, and deserved the opportunity to have a life in the absence of all of the substance use and everything else, deserved the opportunity to have a life that merited respect. Fundamentally, I still believe that. I still believe that every patient, independent of their socioeconomic status, independent of their race, independent of their sex, independent of their ability to pay, deserves the opportunity to have quality healthcare delivered with respect and the best consideration for the potential outcomes for the patient. However, the realities of the current healthcare system are not every patient is viewed the same, in part because the insurance companies don't view patients the same. Under-resourced patients seem to have more hurdles to be overcome for them to obtain quality care. For example, we had an under-resourced patient in our practice who was morbidly obese, but she had severe knee arthritis. And the insurance company did not want to pay for her knee replacement. They required that we get prior authorization, which we did. And then after she had the surgery, because of her body habitus, they decided they did not want to pay for the surgery. $0 reimbursement. Even though we got the prior authorization, their policies regarding the patient's weight must have been a factor in their determination of whether or not they would pay for her surgery. Did you know that insurance companies, we're going back to the economics of mutuality now, not whether or not we got paid for a surgery that we performed. Economics of mutuality. Did you know that insurance companies pay a different amount of money for a procedure based on the zip code in which the patient lives or the care is provided? Let me repeat that. Did you know that insurance companies can and do pay a different amount of money for the same procedure based upon the zip code in which the care is provided? So in New Jersey, a very affluent county is Bergen County. If a patient has a procedure in Bergen County, the care that is provided, the surgeon, the facility, they will receive a greater reimbursement. This is not an under-resourced area, greater reimbursement than in Hudson County. I was speaking with one of my colleagues about this a few weeks ago. She said, don't you remember? There was this huge issue where patients were being taken from Hudson County to Bergen County because the providers would be compensated more in Bergen County than in Hudson County. I'd forgotten. So where's the mutuality in that? Don't forget, we have to be compensated. It's demoralizing to expect someone to go through all of the years of training and to work very hard, 100, 120-hour weeks, and then not to be paid, as we were not paid, for surgery. So where does that leave the mutuality? It's almost like you're being disincentivized to care for the patients who need you the most, where they need the care the most to increase the viability of their community. We are taking value from communities and placing it in communities that don't need it. Where's the mutuality in that? What does it mean to be a doctor in a community? What are the guardrails to help us help our patients in these under-resourced areas? There aren't many. We're disincentivized. Let's just call it what it is. We're disincentivized. We're told that our patients in these communities don't matter quite as much. For that reason, we're not going to pay you as much. And we don't care whether you survive or not. We're going to pay you what we want to pay you, when we want to pay you. And if you go out of practice, better for us. We'll delve into that a bit more in the future. I just wanted to lay out this concept of community in today's conversation and the mutuality, the fact that community practices have a symbiotic relationship with their communities, their environment, the patients that they care for. And that symbiotic relationship, by and large, has worked very well. However, because of the practices that are employed to avoid compensating, providers are being forced out of business, and we will no longer see this symbiosis. We will no longer see this community doctor, this, hey doc, how are you today, relationship in our under-resourced communities. Wow. I'm hitting hard, hitting heavy. I hope you could take it. This is your host, Dr. Erica Rowe Urquhart, with another chapter of UpMed, the Journal of Healthcare's Race to the Bottom. Be well.
Thank you for listening to this episode of UpMed. For more information on Dr. Erica, visit her website at upmed.us and her LinkedIn profile at Erica Rowe Urquhart. To continue the conversation, visit and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Rowe Urquhart. And don't forget to hit the follow button on your favorite listening platform so you never miss an episode. We look forward to joining you next time on UpMed, a Journal of Healthcare's Race to the Bottom.